Ladies and gentlemen, let me paint a picture for you, a story you all know too well, but one with a twist they never saw coming. You see, some people go through life thinking they're invincible, untouchable. They think they can throw stones from glass houses. The karma somehow won't find them. They act with arrogance, as if the world bends to their will. Their egos are inflated, their sense of superiority unchallenged. They step on others without a second thought, assuming the universe will always make room for them, that nothing will ever come back to bite them. But today, they're getting a taste of their own pills, and let me tell you, they don't enjoy it. For so long, they've been the ones dishing out pain, the ones holding the power, the ones who laughed at others' misfortune, who took joy in the suffering of those weaker or smaller or more vulnerable. They lived their lives with no regard for the consequences. And now they're finding out what it feels like. It's a bitter pill to swallow, isn't it? When the shoes are on the other foot, when the tables are turned, and the universe decides it's time for them to experience what they've been dishing out. They're finally getting a taste of their own medicine. For years, they've been the ones who never had to face the consequences of their actions. They were the ones who acted with impunity, who made decisions that crushed others underfoot, who used people as stepping stones to get ahead. They played the game with no remorse, no hesitation, because they believed they were untouchable. They laughed at the ones who tried to warn them, mocked those who dared to call them out. And now they're the ones drowning in the consequences of their own choices, and the taste is sickening. The taste of their own bitterness is so much worse when it's directed at them. Do you see it now? Do you see the cracks in the armor? Do you see the fear behind those eyes that once oozed with arrogance? They thought they were invincible, but now they're realizing that they're just as vulnerable as anyone else. They thought the world would always bend to their will, that nothing would ever come back to haunt them. But the truth, the cold, hard truth, is that no one escapes the reach of karma forever. No one walks through life without paying the price for the damage they've done. The universe is a patient, silent force. It waits, it watches, and then, when the time is right, it strikes. And now, in their moment of weakness, they finally understand. They finally know what it feels like to be powerless, to be at the mercy of forces they cannot control. For once, they're not the ones pulling the strings, and it terrifies them. It's a fear they've never known, a humiliation they've never experienced. They thought they were the masters of the game, the ones who controlled the fate of others, but they've forgotten one fundamental truth. No one is in control forever, not even them. It's ironic, isn't it? The very people who spent their lives pushing others down, who took pleasure in watching others suffer, are now the ones feeling the weight of their own cruelty. They're finally tasting the poison they've been handing out, and it's not nearly as sweet as they thought. It's disgusting, it's overwhelming, and it's a reality they never expected to face. They thought the pain they caused would be forgotten, that their actions would go unpunished. But here they are, facing the consequences of their own making, and the taste of it is like ash in their mouths. But let's not feel sorry for them. Let's not fall into the trap of sympathy. They made their bed, now they must lie in it, the same way they watched others suffer and said nothing, the same way they reveled in the pain they caused. Now they must endure the suffering they so blithely imposed on others. It's not justice. Justice implies balance, but this is not about balance. This is about the unrelenting nature of reality, the way life has a way of catching up with us all. It's not about fairness. Fairness is a luxury. and those who abuse it often find themselves on the receiving end of the most brutal lessons. It's not easy to face the consequences of your own actions. It's not easy to swallow the pills you once so willingly handed out to others, but it's necessary, because that's how the world works. That's how life works. You cannot live without consequence, no matter who you are, no matter how high you climb. Eventually, the weight of your actions will catch up to you, and it will drag you down. And when it does, when that reality hits, it hits harder than anything you could have imagined. You may try to run, you may try to hide, but the truth has a way of finding you. It has a way of catching up with you, no matter how fast or how far you think you can run. And when it does, when the consequences finally come crashing down, there's no escape. There's no place to hide. You can't outrun karma. You can't outrun the truth. And so, they'll learn. They'll learn what it means to be powerless, to be at the mercy of forces beyond their control. They'll learn what it feels like to be the one on the receiving end, to be the one who has no leverage, no influence, no way of protecting themselves. They'll know what it means to be vulnerable, to feel the sting of their own actions, to feel the weight of every lie they told, every person they hurt, every step they took to push others down in order to climb higher. And they won't like it. Oh, they won't like it one bit. They won't like the feeling of being small, of being insignificant, of being nothing more than another player in a game they can no longer control. The arrogance they once wore like armor will turn to dust, and all that will remain is the naked truth of who they really are, just another person, just another vulnerable soul who will one day face the consequences of their own actions. For those of you who have suffered at their hands, for those of you who have been stepped on, humiliated, crushed underfoot, know this: the day will come when they will face the very same thing they put you through. The day will come when they will know what it's like to be powerless, to feel the weight of their own hides, to experience the kind of pain they so readily inflicted upon you. You may not see it happen. You may not see the moment when it all comes crashing down, but know this: it will happen. The universe has a way of balancing the scales, and no one escapes its judgment. And when that day comes, when they finally understand what it feels like, it will be a moment of reckoning. It will be a moment of realization, a moment when they look into the mirror and see themselves for who they really are. No better, no worse than anyone else. Just another person trying to survive in a world that doesn't care for egos, that doesn't care for arrogance, that doesn't care for power. The universe isn't interested in who you think you are. It's interested in what you do, how you treat others, and how you live with the consequences of your actions. But for now, they are still clinging to the illusion. They are still holding on to their sense of invincibility, still trying to convince themselves that they are beyond the reach of the universe. They haven't learned yet. They haven't had that moment of clarity. But it's coming, and when it does, it will break them. It will tear down everything they've built, every illusion of control they've clung to. It will expose them for what they truly are. Nothing more than a person who, for a brief moment, thought they could outrun their own destiny. And that's the tragedy of it all, isn't it? The ones who think they're invincible are the first ones to fall. The ones who spend their lives hurting others, abusing their power, and basking in the suffering they cause, are the ones who will be crushed beneath the weight of their own choices. And when they finally realize the truth, when they finally understand what it feels like to be powerless, to be at the mercy of forces beyond their control, it will be too late. The damage will have been done. The pain will have already been inflicted, and they will have no one to blame but themselves. So to those who have wronged others, to those who have hurt others in their climb to the top, know this: You're getting a taste of your own pills now. You don't enjoy it, do you? That's because it was never meant to be enjoyed. It was always meant to be a lesson in humility, a lesson in the cost of your actions, a lesson in what happens when you think you can escape the consequences of your own choices. You may try to run from it. You may try to pretend it's not happening. But the truth is, the reckoning is here, and there's no escaping it. No one gets away forever. And when the dust settles, when the smoke clears, you'll finally see what you've become. Just another broken soul, standing in the ruins of their own arrogance, waiting for the next dose of karma to remind them that no one, not even you, can outrun the consequences of their actions. And that, my friends, is the bitter truth that even the most invincible cannot escape. There's a saying that the higher you rise, the harder you fall. But it's not just about height, it's about the way you climb. The manner in which you build your ascent matters just as much as the peak itself. For those who think they can climb by stepping on the backs of others, by using cruelty as their ladder, there will come a day when that ladder will break and they will come crashing down. And when they will fall harder than anyone else because they will have nothing to break their descent. No foundation of kindness, no web of support, nothing but the cold, hard ground below them. When you've built your life on lies, on manipulation, on mistreatment, it might feel like you're on top of the world for a while. The world might seem to bend to your will, but that bending is only temporary. Eventually, the pressure will snap and the illusion will shatter. Every act of betrayal, every moment of selfishness, every time you use someone as a stepping stone to climb higher will come back to haunt you, and that haunting will not be subtle. It won't be a whisper in the night. It will come for you, head on, like a storm that you cannot outrun, a reckoning that you cannot dodge. Now let's talk about the pain that comes when this happens, when the tables are turned, when the scales of justice finally tip in favor of those you once scorned. It's not just a moment of discomfort. It's not just a slap on the wrist. It's an unraveling. It's a breaking down of everything you thought you understood about life, about power, about control. The cruelty you once inflicted on others will return to you, magnified tenfold, and it will tear you apart in ways you cannot prepare for. It will break you. The invincible you thought you were will be crushed under the weight of the very thing you once used to crush others. And in that moment, when you're lying in the debris of your own making, you will realize that no amount of money, no position of power, no external validation will be enough to save you. You will be left with nothing but the cold, empty truth of who you really are. The mask you wore, the persona you built to protect yourself from the consequences of your actions will fall away, and what will be left is a hollow shell, a person who must finally face themselves. There will be no one left to blame, no one else to point the finger at. It will be you and the consequences of everything you've done. And the truth is, when that happens, it will hurt more than anything anyone else could have done to you. The guilt will eat you alive, because you will know that you brought it upon yourself. You will know that the pain you're feeling now is the result of the suffering you caused others. The very pain you once reveled in will be the pain that destroys you. You see, the worst part of this process isn't even the fall itself. It's not the humiliation. It's not the realization that you were never as invincible as you thought. The worst part is that in the end, there is no redemption for those who fail to recognize their own humanity. There is no grace for those who refuse to understand that power, when abused, becomes a curse, not a blessing. There is no second chance for those who never learn from their mistakes, who never stop long enough to look back and acknowledge the people they've hurt along the way. And that is where the true darkness lies, in the realization that the cycle could have been broken at any moment. It could have ended with a simple act of empathy, of humility, of kindness. But no, you chose to keep climbing, to keep pushing others down in order to stay on top. You chose to keep playing the game of life as if it was a game with no consequences, no repercussions. You chose to keep telling yourself that you were untouchable. And now, here you are, with nowhere to go and no one to turn to. The walls are closing in and you can't hide anymore. So, let's talk about what happens when there's no escape. When the damage is done and you cannot outrun the consequences, what's left? What is the price of this arrogance, of this delusion of invincibility? The price is not just the loss of status, not just the shattering of your empire. The true price is the cost of your own soul. You'll be left with a raw, exposed heart, one that has been weighed down with the cruelty it once dealt out. You'll look in the mirror and see nothing but a stranger staring back at you. The person you thought you were, powerful, unstoppable, will be gone. And all that will remain is the shell of a human being, a reflection of all the hurt you caused. That's the cost of arrogance. That's the price of thinking you could outrun karma. That's the price of forgetting that you're just as fragile as everyone else. But it's not too late. Not yet. There is still a chance for you to change, but it requires something that most people in your position are too prideful to do. It requires humility. It requires you to admit that you were wrong, that you hurt people, that you took advantage of them, and that the world doesn't owe you anything. It requires you to confront your own demons and to recognize the damage you've done. Only then can you begin the long, painful process of rebuilding. Only then can you begin to make amends, to try and fix the things you've broken. But make no mistake, this is not an easy road. This is not a quick fix. This is a lifelong commitment to righting the wrongs you've committed, and it begins with facing yourself, with understanding that you are not invincible. You are not above the law of the universe, and it's time for you to pay what you owe. But for those who are unwilling to change, for those who continue to cling to their sense of superiority and power, the reckoning will be swift, it will be merciless, and it will be final. And when that reckoning comes, there will be no one left to save you. The universe does not play favorites. It doesn't care how much money you have or how many people fear you. It only cares about what you give to the world. It only cares about how you treat others and how you choose to leave your mark on this earth. And so, to the arrogant, to the self-righteous, to the ones who believed they were above the rules, the universe is not done with you yet. No, not by a long shot. It's been patient, it's been watching, and now the moment has come. The moment when you will feel the full force of your actions. The moment when you will finally understand what it means to be powerless, to be vulnerable, to be at the mercy of the very forces you thought you could control. And when that moment comes, when you finally realize that you are no different from anyone else, it will be a bitter pill to swallow. But it will be a pill that you must swallow, because it is the price of the life you've chosen to live. No amount of pride, no amount of wealth, no amount of influence can shield you from the consequences of your actions forever. You will face the music, whether you like it or not. And when you do, there will be no one left to blame but yourself. So, let this be a lesson to all of you. Let this be a warning to anyone who thinks they are invincible, who believes they can escape the consequences of their choices. No one is untouchable. No one is beyond the reach of karma. And when the day comes for you to pay the price, when you get a taste of your own medicine, know that it will not be a pleasant experience. It will be the reckoning you've earned, and there will be no escaping it. So ask yourselves, is it worth it? Is it worth the pain you're going to face? Is it worth the emptiness that will be left when everything you've built comes crumbling down? Is it worth the destruction of your soul to keep pretending that you're above the law of life? The answer is simple. No, it was never worth it. But by the time you realize that, it may already be too late. And that, my friends, is the tragedy. The universe has its own sense of justice, and no one escapes its reckoning forever. The consequences of your actions will always catch up with you. So choose wisely, for the price you pay might just be the destruction of everything you've built.